Hello everybody and welcome to another Transmission Wine. Today we're talking Aston Martin. Now I've recorded this one a good few weeks in advance, so no doubt things will have changed. So for the sake of clarity, the date of recording is the 7th of June. Now I've been doing a lot of browsing online, as I often want to, and one website that I found which is quite interesting is Karenable, or Karenable. It's the blog of the secret supercar owner who will be familiar to former Evo readers and even current ones, I guess, as well. And he's a gentleman with a very nice car collection. Does a lot of writing on it. Is very transparent about a lot of his goings on, and he has some very nice experiences that he's kind enough to share with the sort of mortals like us, really. And he's a good chap. I haven't really spoken to him ever, but seems nice enough. Maybe if he wants to get in touch, he can tell me if I've pronounced his website correctly. And he's done some pieces on what his McLarens have been like to run. He's had very good experiences with the McLaren. So if you want to hear about good McLaren experiences, go and read up on his stuff, because I will always promote opposite viewpoints if they're well backed up, and his certainly are. He's got a bunch of Ferraris as well. He's done some bits talking about running costs of all of those, but he's also done some more business analysis stuff. And he very clearly is a man that's got a lot more business experience and business training than myself. Now, he's done a very good article, and I'll link to that in the description down below. If I haven't, please do remind me to do that. And it's looking at McLaren, Ferrari and Aston Martin, their position in the market, how things have changed from sort of quarter one to quarter two in 2020, and then comparing that with last year and analysing them. Now, my thoughts on McLaren are well known, and I've no interest in going over those again. Ferrari seem to be doing very well, all things considered. They're suffering a little bit, but then everybody is. But it's Aston Martin that are in real trouble. Now, if you want to know from a business perspective what's going on, please go and read the blog, because he's going to do a better job of explaining it than I can. In lay terms, Aston Martin are in deep doo-doo. And I really can't see them getting their way out of this anytime soon. They have famously gone bankrupt 7 times in their history. And although with McLaren, I feel like I can say with some sort of decent clarity what the problems are, with Aston Martin it seems a little bit more difficult. I actually did a video talking about a year ago on what I thought Aston Martin's problems were, and the video was not really anyone paid attention to it. Certainly not in the numbers that people that watched the McLaren video. However, Aston have got some big problems. Aston have got some really big problems. Their financial situation is no secret. They did this IPO, they went public a few years ago, and the company is now worth a fraction. A tiny fraction of what it was when they went public. The last few years financially for Aston Martin have been a total horror show. It's not been pretty. Now, I like to look at things from the sort of lay perspective, because that's the only way that I can look at it, and sometimes I feel like doing that can give you a reasonable insight into what's going on. Like I said, if you want to see it from a more business perspective, go and read the Karenable blog. However, Aston have a core product lineup. That core product lineup is V8 Vantage, DB11 and the DBS. Simply put, those products aren't working. They're just not. I haven't driven any of them. I've been offered, I think, 1 or 2 of them to drive, and I'm doing my best to organise that, but they're just not out there. Now, unfortunately, it's very difficult for me to find numbers on V8 Vantage, because the websites that can tell me these sorts of things will then lump the numbers in with those of the old V8 Vantage, so that isn't very helpful. In terms of, say, the DBS, the numbers aren't so good. You're looking at, say, about 350 cars on the road in the UK, and that is not necessarily the truth. This is from How Many Left, which I will say is a notoriously inaccurate site, but using the same site, so a relatively fair metric, there are twice as many Bentley Bentayga W12s on the road. That is surprising. DB11, not really that much better. Bearing in mind DB11's been out for quite a bit longer, and I have seen a few DB11s on the road. The DB11 V12, less than 1,000 on the road in the UK, and the UK surely must be the biggest or second largest market for Aston Martin. Traditionally for these kind of brands, usually it's either, America tends to be the biggest market, followed by the home territory. So in Aston's case, of course, here, then usually somewhere like Japan, something like that. Or Germany frequently does well as well. So DB11 V12, 989, DB11 V8, 421, V8 Volante, 383, and DB11 AMR, 125. That's not good. That's bad. Now, why is that? I discussed that before, and there's no point in regurgitating that video. If you want to go and see it, go see it, because my opinions haven't really changed on why. But when you're a company that has a trio of reasonably new products, and these are products that Aston probably expect to last a long time, and they're not selling, you've got an issue. They've spent out a huge, huge sum of money on DBX, on preparing the St Athan factory for production. They say they've got a lot of orders for it, and I really, really hope that they do. I've actually seen a couple of DBXs in the flesh, granted not for very long because they were driving the other way, but I was driving near the factory and I saw them, and they're okay. I don't know what they were thinking when they styled the back, but from the front they look okay, from the inside they look great, and all reports seem to be that they're very, very good cars. But then the reports of all of the other Astons tended to be that they were very, very good cars. They're simply not cars that anybody actually wants to buy. That's something of a problem. You've also got this unfortunate situation, which nobody could have predicted, of a global pandemic. And with the worst recession on record, I don't think people are really going to be queuing up to pay for a £200,000 SUV. It's just not going to happen. I didn't really have that much confidence in the DBX as being the saviour of Aston Martin anyway, because they seem to be extraordinarily late to the party, and if the numbers of Bentegas sold are anything to go by, I'm just not sure they're going to sell that many. I would have thought that Porsche would have really cornered the sort of bottom end of that market, if you can call it that, with the Cayenne. Range Rover, of course, are always going to be strong, very prestigious brand on its own, and compared to the DBX, exceedingly good value. And if you're the crazy baller type, well, you've got the Rolls-Royce anyway with the Cullinan. So where DBX expects to fit into that party, and it's a party that it is very, very late to, I don't know. You've then got the Valkyrie, their super exciting, ultra limited edition track car that sort of everyone seems to be doing something like that now. But I don't mind the Aston Martin. It's got some real pedigree thanks to the Red Bull connection that they had. How much that's still there, I really don't know. And they're going to sell a few of those, but I think they'd probably be lucky with that project if they simply recoup their cost. You've then got Valhalla, which is a limited edition mid-engine hypercar, which every YouTuber apparently has ordered. And again, when you're only selling 500 of them, how much money were they actually ever expecting to make off that project? And they probably did all their maths assuming they were going to sell out every single one. Like I said in my previous video talking about hypercar issues, the problem with these things is that you're doing all of your maths based on the idea that every single one of them is going to sell at full price. And I just can't see that happening. I personally think things like the SF90, as amazing as it is, will struggle. In the current marketplace, they're going to struggle. The next couple of years, maybe they'll do okay, but SF90 is a production car. The Valhalla is a limited run car. They can't afford to keep that production line going forever. Aston Martin have already had a lot of other distractions as well. You've got these apartments they're doing in Miami, which I have no idea what's going on there. And you've also got this submarine thing they're building, and they've got all sorts of stuff they're doing. Now, they want to go racing, and racing is a very, very expensive thing to do. It's no surprise with Mr. Stroll having bought a chunk of the place that racing was a big part of his agenda, and Formula One is an excellent, excellent way to get rid of a lot of money. Now, Mr. Stroll is not exactly a poor man, and I really, really hope that he can turn the place around. But other than appointing the AMG boss, or I don't think that was probably his decision, but other than kicking Mr. Palmer or Dr. Palmer out and appointing Tobias Morse from AMG, I haven't seen any sort of grand master plan, again, at the time of filming, from Aston to say what it is they're going to do and how they're going to save things, because ultimately their problem is the fact that nobody is buying their core products. All of these fancy, flashy things, Valkyrie, all that sort of stuff, they're a garnish on top of something. And the fact is that there's no point garnishing a turd. If you aren't selling your core product, if you aren't bringing those numbers in, like for Porsche, they can afford to do 918s, GT3 RSs, all that sort of stuff, because 911, Boxster, Cayenne, Macan all sell in big numbers all the time. Aston Martin simply doesn't have that to fall back on. And I think they need to take a long, hard look at Vantage, DB11, DBS, work out what is not working, because it's really, really not. I mean, they cannibalized. They killed the Vantage at Christmas. What did they do? Well, nobody was buying Vantage. It was too expensive. It was one of the big problems with it, far too expensive. And they were doing deals at Christmas on a Vantage, new Vantage, £1,000 down a month and £1,000 a month. So £1,000 down as a deposit, sorry. £1,000 as a deposit and £1,000 a month. That is a silly finance deal. That's cheaper than you get like a C63 for. That's cheaper than I know people have paid for an M4. That is a mad, mad finance deal. And the second they did that, they set a precedent. That is the price now that people will want to pay for a V8 Vantage. And guess what? If you walked into your Aston Martin dealer knowing that a few months ago somebody got a Vantage for that, and you said to Aston, yeah, I want to buy that car, and they said, oh yeah, it's going to be 10 grand down and £1,500 a month, you're just going to say no. You're just going to say, absolutely not. I'm not paying it. No way, because my mate Bob, he got one at half the price, and I'll just wait. And that's what's going to happen. It's a fine tactic to clear out stock if you're not going to try and replace that stock and sell it on. It's a great tactic for when a model is at the end of its life, but Vantage wasn't. Vantage was a brand new product pretty much, and yeah, they have just admitted that it isn't worth what they're asking for it. So Aston are not in a good place. I really, really hope they can sort things out. And the good news with Aston is because it's such a popular brand that is in such constant demand, someone's going to buy them. I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Stroll makes an offer to take over more of the company. That's just a guess of mine, because then he can do what he wants with it. But they really, really need to rethink what they're doing and what they want the company to be. I think they need to knuckle down. They need to look at their core product lineup and make it better, because I just do not see, I don't get DBX as the saviour of that company. Just don't think it's going to work. Hey ho, there's a little bit about Aston Martin. Thanks as always for tuning in. I'll see you for the next one. Bye bye.